Hey there, YouTube. So I am sitting in the back seat of my car, which probably means that I'm going to be doing an interior review. If many of you guys have noticed my pattern, I always start from the back and work my way forward. So we're going to go ahead and start in the back seat of this 2015 Hyundai Elantra, and I will go ahead and be telling you guys some of my opinions on this interior, as well as will this interior actually benefit the car or will it hurt it in the long run? So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to mention about this interior is that it is very spacious. As you can see, even though this is a small car from the outside, once you step in, this actually feels more like a mid-size car, which, I mean, I guess people agreed because this car is actually classified as a mid-size car, even though it's got kind of the compact car exterior size. So ultimately, like I said, much space is actually to be had in this vehicle. I am actually 5'10", so I drive in basically this position here. Well, person my height could sit very comfortably back here, even for hours, and I actually find the fact that this car provides a lot of leg room. It's like JetBlue versus American Airlines. You definitely want to fly JetBlue. So this is like the JetBlue, a Hyundai Accent's like American Airlines. It's very crowded in the back of an Accent, but in this Elantra, look at all that leg room you get here. There is so much leg room in this vehicle. It's actually really nice. You're able to stretch out and you're able to actually just be comfortable, which is something that cars in this segment don't always offer. So it is good that this particular vehicle does offer that. Now, the other thing is that even though the seats are cloth they can be a little bit stiff, ultimately they are actually still very comfortable. I would be able to sit in this car, even in the back seat on trips, and I would have no issues whatsoever. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move into the materials. Oh, one more thing, these seats do fold down 60-40, so you are able to extend your trunk space. So, let's go ahead and move into the materials. So, we'd already know that the seats are cloth. How about the door panels? So, the door panels are actually relatively hard touch plastics, and this was something that I was naive about when I drove the 2013 Elantra. The interior does tend to scratch up a little bit easy, which I can see hurting the vehicle in the long run, but overall, it's actually still not bad. Like, it's good for this particular, for one, brand, two, and particular class of vehicles. It's hard touch here, hard touch underneath the carpet material. The doors, they're not very flimsy. The handles are not very flimsy at all like the Accents are, and the window switches are pretty basic. But you do get a little cup holder, which is nice because, you know, when you're on a long trip with friends or so on and so forth. I probably won't be taking much of the Dodge Chargers on trips because those things guzzle gas, so this is the next best thing. So, hard touch plastics, however, I do have a little bit of padding for my elbow, so that is nice to know that I do have. Same thing on the other side. As you can see, this is just a better view of it. Ultimately, you are able to see that even though the door is pretty much hard touch, it ultimately works for the vehicle. Now, the Coupe Styling is kind of where this car kind of sucks, because if you're tall, you will actually still want to get into the front seat, because the back seat will be a little bit intrusive on your headspace. Even though for me it's not so bad, but if you are like 6'5", please, for God's sake, sit in the front seat or drive. So that's basically it from the back seat. As you can see, a lot of leg room here, a lot of comfort in the back seat. You do have cup holders not only in the doors, but also in this central armrest. If you only have 4 passengers, you are able to get 2 same size cup holders, which is actually nice because it drives me nuts when they have one big cup holder and one small one. So as you can see, headliner sucks a little bit, but overall the car is actually relatively comfortable. So let's go ahead and move into the front because that's where all the cool stuff is. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and shift. Ooh. All right. So this is kind of what Hobby looks like on the outside. He is silver. He is no longer, or he is not a mommy gold color, which I could not stand that about my Honda, but I did have the aluminum alloy wheels because I was definitely not going to downgrade back to hubcaps. So I made sure Hyundai knew I was not messing around when it came to that, and I wanted aluminum wheels, or aluminum, excuse me, but you know, I take chemistry and my teacher was Asian, so that's how she said it, and it kind of just stuck in my head. So, now we're in the front seat. So the front seat of the vehicle is actually relatively very comfortable. And this is more or less, I would say the passenger seat is one of the easiest seats to lounge in. You have so much room in the front. Look at all that leg room back there, or up there. And it's just like, you know, no matter how big you are, you can just kind of lay back and, you know, be comfortable. And so I do find the fact that the forward seat is very, very, I guess you could say, accommodating. again, the headliner is a little bit of a problem, but overall I do find that the newer generation does have more of an arch, which will allow your taller passengers to get in and out. So, moving into the actual gadgets of the vehicle, it actually looks very complicated, but it's very simple. You only have 6 or 8 buttons on the forward section, and you have your volume knob as well as your tuner, and ultimately, it's a very basic car, but again, you get what you pay for. So, you have your radio, media, phone, mute, scan, setup, your normal controls there. You're able to seek your tracks, and ultimately the screen is there to show you what songs you're playing, what station you're on, and ultimately if you're backing up, you will be able to have that little camera there to assist you. Now moving into the AC controls, again, very basic. There are only 4 fan speeds, and you're able to control where the air blows, and you're able to control whether or not the AC comes on and whether or not you want to circulate it. So if you do fart, please turn the circulation off because that definitely can smell. Now, moving into the lower sections, you do have a little storage unit here. It's not very large, but this is where your aux and iPod and USB areas are. And you also do have a 12-volt charger just in case you want to go ahead and charge 2 phones at once. Again, I do have a little bit of storage here, but it's not quite great. But again, it's something that is useful. Moving on to the gear shifter, this is actually one of the newer developments that Hyundai made. They used to actually have a pattern shifter, and you will still see that in the Hyundai Accent. In this particular model, it does have a shift boot, which is actually something that I find really nice. It doesn't resemble, or it kind of looks like a manual transmission, but it actually just makes it look more luxurious in my opinion. So I do like the fact that I have a shift boot, and it's a straight shifter versus one that I have to pull to the right to pull down to go into reverse, only to pull left to go into neutral, and then pull down to go to drive, and then go to 3, 2, and 1, and so on and so forth. Now this transmission is a 6-speed, so obviously they don't have that option much anymore. But they do have 2 little cup holders here. Now what's nice about the center console is it is small, it only is 1 level, but if I were to extend this forward, I have a better armrest. However, you will notice that if you do have a large drink or something like that in the second cup holder, you will be a little obstructed. So that's one downfall about this, but it's not at all too awful. So now we're going to go ahead and move to what I think is actually one of the cooler parts of the vehicle is the actual dash. Well, the dash is huge, as you can see. That's one thing I forgot to mention is it's enormous. I actually think Hyundai could have made it a little bit shorter, but it does make it look bigger, and it actually offers that more spacious feel, so whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and insert the key here, and we're just gonna go ahead and turn on some basic controls. So the first thing is the gauges light up blue no matter what. This is what the screen does ultimately. When I put it into reverse, the camera will turn on. Now the car is not actually on releasing any carbon monoxide, so I am okay. As you guys can see, the garage door was closed, but the car will not be started. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss with you guys a few things. So as you can see, most of your lights are in the center. You have your fuel gauge and you have your temperature gauge, which are ultimately there. They're not analog. So ultimately, that is a little bit annoying because rather than gradually seeing your fuel gauge go down, it just drops a bar and you're like, oh, damn it. So overall, I actually am like, I would rather have the analog, but overall it's not something that I'm really going to be complaining about. So another thing to mention is that you can see that there's an average 26.7 miles per gallon, so I can actually change that using the trip button on the steering wheel, and ultimately that will allow me to see my average speed. Now mind you, I don't drive very far to school, so yes, I do only drive like 15 to 20 miles an hour because Vegas drivers suck. Moving into this, I'm not exactly sure what that does. I'll have to double check on that. That's how far I've gone. On this tank, I usually measure my gas tanks, and as you can see, I've only gone 140 miles and I'm already a half tank. Not too bad, but again, the gas tank is small. So that's my range until empty, and ultimately I'm back to my 26.7 miles per gallon average. Now, that's not too awful. I mean, it is basic, but again, it's something that I didn't have on my Honda, so it actually is nice. That eco button there is actually controlled by this particular button here. So if I turn it off, as you can see, it turns off on the dash. All eco does, really, for those of you guys that don't know, it's just there to regulate the shifting on your car to be more fuel efficient. So it will reduce the throttle response, and it will ultimately, cause the car to be a little bit slower in the long run while saving you some fuel. So, with that being said, let's move into the steering column. So the steering wheel is actually really cool. I actually find that Hyundai did this steering wheel better than their newer models. As you can see, I can control the radio from the left, and I can also control the cruise control on the right-hand side. It is a 4-spoke steering wheel, but it's actually pretty cool. So the mode button is actually where I can control whether or not I put the steering column in the sport mode, comfort mode, or normal mode. I usually drive it in normal because comfort feels a little clumsy, and sport mode, although it is stiff, it's not really necessary because this car to me is not a very sporty vehicle. It's actually rather slow. So let's move into the Bluetooth. As you can see here, I can control my Bluetooth from the steering wheel or from this little screen when someone else calls. It is nice. It's not too shabby. And again, even though this is a basic car, it actually still is, relatively nice for its price. Air vents are actually pretty sturdy in this vehicle. The Nissan Versas had an issue with their round air vents breaking. But again, the door panels up here are the same deal as the back seat. You do have hard touch plastic on the handle, and ultimately throughout the door panel it carries through. However, you do have your little carpet section here, as well as your nicely soft padded elbow rests, and I do have cup holders down here as well. If I did not mention, the Accent does not have the cup holders in the doors in the back seats, so this is something that is actually for the Elantra, which is actually nice. So again, your headliner kind of sucks. It is pretty, it's not very rounded, but again, you can live with that if you're under 5'10". And overall, again, this car ultimately is really good for its price, so I'm actually pretty happy about that. Now, last thing is moving into the glove box. The glove box is actually rather spacious, and it ultimately opens rather very nice. It doesn't seem like it drops down and actually just takes you out. It's a gradual come down, which is nice, and it doesn't bang. So, yes, I do have Raising Cane's napkins just in case I get boogers and stuff like that, or I'm crying in the car, which I really rarely do, but it's one of those things where you have to have a just in case moment, or you actually have a girlfriend where they just cry too much. So, with that being said, take that advice, all you guys who have boyfriends or girlfriends or so on and so forth. Keep napkins just in case you don't have a hanky on hand. So that's basically the interior of my vehicle. I do have these here, and this is one thing that I wanted to let you guys know. That actually hits pretty hard up there, but overall, it's a cheap car and the headliner is not very quiet. So that's one thing that Hyundai may be able to work on. I do have a glasses holder here. Oh, let's try that again. Glasses holder here, so, that's one luxury I do have. I wish I did have gate openers, but, I don't have that, so. That's about it, you guys, but this has overall been my 2015 Hyundai Elantra. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this interior review. If you guys have any questions, by all means, let me know, and we will kind of go from there. So, enjoy this spacious interior. And I will be going to California on this next week, so, we'll be getting some updates there. All right, you guys, have a good one.